We heard earlier from Tracy about planning, putting together a really good plan. And regardless of whether we're going down the traditional business plan role or whether we're doing a lean startup or somewhere in between, we know that plans are really, really important for us as startups. But what happens when invariably, and we know it's going to happen, the plan doesn't go quite like it's supposed to? There's going to be things that come up along the way, as these guys just discussed, that we had no plan for in the first place. So our next speaker is going to address that very thing, and that's just being flexible and learning on the fly. His name is Jeff Gale. He is the founder of TicketBiscuit. He's been in the web business experience since 1997 when he co-founded Nylon Designs in Brooklyn. He developed the original TicketBiscuit system in 2001, and in 2005 turned his full attention to the ticketing needs of the entertainment industry. Please welcome Mr. Jeff Gale.
Hey guys. Good day so far, everybody?
Yeah.
All right. Let me start with a little informal poll here, just by show of hands. Who has learned at least one valuable thing so far today? Awesome, awesome. Pretty much everybody. It's a good thing because you're probably not going to get one from me. But I want to start with one of the valuable things that I learned during my time at the Entrepreneur Accelerator program here in Birmingham. I went through that a few years ago. Absolutely one of the most valuable things I could have done for myself and for my business. One of the most important things that I learned there, the one that I remember from one of the days, is that when you meet somebody for the first time, you look them in the eye and you say your name very loudly and clearly and who you work with, so there's no chance that they misunderstand you or forget it. So, I'm Jeff Gale with TicketBiscuit. I was going to make you all do that to one another, but that's goofy, so I'm just going to skip that. But you know, as basic as it is, there's another valuable thing that I learned, and that's the basic things are very often the most important things. So that's really what I'm going to talk about today, is kind of the basics. Some of the things that I learned, admittedly, too late, and try to relate those things to my story and my experience with TicketBiscuit. So, I'll start by giving you a little bit of background on who I am and where TicketBiscuit came from. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a rock star. This was after the phase where I wanted to be in corporate law. It was also after the phase where I wanted to be a ninja. But a rock star actually stuck for a while. In high school, I played in a band, which never really went anywhere. But I did get to meet a lot of girls, so that was good. Then I went to college in New York, and I played in a different band, which never really went anywhere. But it was New York, so I got to at least go see a lot of bands. After college, I thought I'd give it one more shot. I moved back to Birmingham in '99 and played in a different band, which never really went anywhere. But I did learn one valuable thing. I learned a lot about the music business, and it turned out that that was very valuable. I didn't realize it at the time when I was rocking out to no one in the audience, but it was very valuable what I was learning about the music business. One of the things that happened because of my playing in the band is that I got to know the guys that opened this place, right here, WorkPlay. And WorkPlay became the launch pad for TicketBiscuit. Had no idea at the time, but they were my first software development client, and that became the launch pad for TicketBiscuit. So it's pretty cool. You know, the moral of the story here is that the road to success, if I can use that word loosely, doesn't always take the turns that you expect it to. Or the turns that you want it to, for that matter. But if you keep your eyes open to different opportunities and you allow yourself to be led in some sense, then you'll get there. You've also got to plan on doing stuff that you haven't really planned on. And you've got to be prepared not to do stuff that you had planned on. So there's where some of that flexibility comes in, being open to opportunities that weren't really the ones that you were expecting. The other moral of the story, of course, is quit the band. So back to the topic, the basics. I think there are some very basic and very important things that every entrepreneur should know about starting a business or running a business. Most likely you guys know these things already. You may not know them, but I think it's always good to know what you know. And so hopefully this will at least serve as a reminder and maybe bring some of your intuitive things conscious. So let's start with why. Why start a business? Well, I'll tell you the reasons that I had and what I think about those reasons now. Reason number one, I don't want to work for anyone. Well, guess what? You always work for someone. Whether it's your clients, your customers, your employees, your spouse, your kids, whoever it is, you're always going to work for someone. But what you can do as an entrepreneur, more so than the working stiff, is determine who you work for to some extent. And that's pretty valuable. But you got to be prepared to turn away some clients here and there that you don't want to work for. It's a tough thing to do, but it'll happen, and it needs to happen. Reason number 2, I want to be rich. Good luck with that. We all know this statistic. The great majority of businesses fail within the first few years, although I think that statistic probably skews low for people who attend Birmingham Startup Summit. Very often those failing businesses lose large sums of money for their founders and or investors. And of those that don't fail, very few actually end up making their founders rich. But if you do it right, you can probably make as much money as you'd make working a 9-to-5, you can enjoy some fringe benefits, and maybe you can help some other like-minded folks do the same. Reason number 3, I want a flexible work environment. This goal is actually very achievable, but by itself, it's really not worth a whole lot. I mean, what good is working in your underwear if you're eating ramen noodles every night? Or if you're not making enough money and you've got to lay off some people that you care about. So this is what I think about the flexible work environment. It's gravy. You'll get it if your business is successful. If you're not successful, you won't have the flexibility for long. Reason number 4, I want to be happy. Now we're getting somewhere. Most people spend 40 hours a week, which is the majority of their waking lives, doing something they don't enjoy, or at best don't care about. Successful entrepreneurs spend 60, 80, 100 plus hours a week on their business because they have no other choice. They're compelled to do so. If the thought of spending that much time on your business doesn't make you giddy with excitement, you need to just go get a job because you're going to be putting in the hours. Now, I didn't go out and start TicketBiscuit because I wanted all these things. I mean, I suppose I knew that I didn't want a boss. I knew that I didn't want to keep regular hours or follow a dress code. And really, those are the only reasons that I can look back on and say why at 27 years of age, I had yet to have any real type of job. But I can't say that I set out to get rich. I'm still not, by the way, very far from it. But I did want to wean myself off credit cards, wanted to wean myself off family loans. I think ultimately all I really wanted was to maintain my offbeat lifestyle and not go bankrupt. So what I found in the last 10 years or so is that those things, independence, financial freedom, flexibility, satisfaction, none of those things is guaranteed, right? And none of them is necessarily what motivates you to go start a business. But they're all both ingredients and byproducts of success. So let me say that a different way. You need all of those elements in order to build a successful business. And a successful business delivers these things to those who build it. So that's the why. What about the what? What kind of business? Well, let's talk about how venture capitalists evaluate businesses. What's the size of the market? If it's not a $10 billion market, I don't want to be part of it. Much love to the VCs out there, you guys are great. But it's not how we think, right? VCs are also thinking, what advantages does one business have over its competitors? How talented, motivated, and competent are the people behind the business? These are all obviously very important things in business, but it's not what we're thinking about. We're entrepreneurs, not investors, at least not yet. By definition, entrepreneurs start businesses. And it's important to remember that starting a business is not the same as investing in a business. The VC wants a financial return primarily. They're looking to put their money to work, but we're looking to put ourselves to work. Maybe we're looking to put our friends to work. So we've got to consider things besides just the financial return. We've got to care about those other elements of success. In particular, there's that happiness thing. So as you start to think about what kind of business to start or whether the business you've already started is the right kind, here are a couple questions that you can ask yourself that may help. What kind of people do I want to work with? We heard a lot about this from Jason and Ben, and it really helps validate my thinking along these lines. Also, how does making a positive impact on the world fit into my business? Or does it? And what am I going to be psyched about working on 80 plus hours a week? So let's start with the people. Like the guys from Mongo HQ said, even if you've always been a lone wolf code poet, there's a very good chance you'll be working with other people once your business gains a little bit of steam. There's a pretty low ceiling to what you can do by yourself, right? Obviously, you can't manufacture, market, and distribute physical goods by yourself. You probably can't even build a business around a web app or a mobile app by yourself. You can probably build the app by yourself, but you can't build a business by yourself. So get comfortable that you're going to be spending a lot of time with your partners, your employees, and your clients, and make sure they're the kind of people that you want to be around. Also, make sure that they have skill sets that complement your own. This is another rehash of what Jason and Ben said, because it's on the mark. Teams work best when there's a division of labor, and division of labor works best when every member on the team is the best one at their particular job. This all seems pretty obvious. But the not so obvious part is that in order to form that team, and that best possible team, you've got to be honest with yourself about your weaknesses. And this is a hard thing to do. We entrepreneurs are a cocky bunch, right? We think we can do everything because very often we're forced to do everything, in the beginning at least. And doing everything fools us into thinking that we're the best at everything. We're not. So when it comes time to bring on partners or employees, take an honest assessment of yourself. Have a third party give you an unbiased assessment. Have a friend or a colleague or a trusted advisor tell you what your weaknesses are, because it's likely that you won't recognize them yourself. There's going to be gaps in your skill sets. Find the people who are experts in the areas where you're not, and put the puzzle pieces together. You know, I actually thought that I could grow TicketBiscuit myself to the point where it was just making a ton of money and I didn't have to do any work, and what a wonderful dream that was while it lasted. It seems ridiculous now when I think back to that, and when I look around now at the awesome staff that I have working with me. I couldn't do any of their jobs, at least nowhere near as well that they could do, at least near as well as they do them. But I didn't consciously go through that process of assessing my weaknesses and all that before I started the company. I'm not sure I still have, but I was lucky enough that the business kind of built itself around the people who could bring the necessary skills to the table at the time they came on board. Here again, it's about allowing yourself to be led. I'll tell you about some of my first few hires and about how we formed the core team. So around 2006, it was still just me. I had pounded the pavement a little bit, I'd rewritten the application, and I'd managed to land a few good clients. Decided that I had some potential and that I was going to need some help. So I was in the Entrepreneur Accelerator program, and one of my classmates was Mario Moore from Grades First, who we're going to hear from soon. He reminded me of somebody that I had known while working at the bank. A guy that knew a thing or two about running a real business. So got reintroduced, had a handful of coffee meetings, and soon he was on board as employee number 2 and COO. That was early 2007, and it's when TicketBiscuit really took off. Even though I started the company in 2001, there was a very obvious inflection point in early 2007 when I finally had a co-founder. John Burdett is his name. He's our COO. If any of you ever get the opportunity to be on his team or to have him on your team, don't think twice, do it. John's team usually wins, trust me on that. So a little bit later, we realized that we'd hit the limits of my software development skills. They were self-taught, I was stretched thin, I couldn't keep up with the way code was changing. So we knew we had to bring on somebody with real technical chops. John knew this guy named Jamie Taylor, who came on board as CTO and continues to blow me away every day with what his team can accomplish. There is no doubt in my mind that our software could only have been built by a handful of other people in the world, and even then only if they had a budget 10 times the size of ours. So we're really fortunate to have such an incredible technical team now. Shortly after Jamie joined the team, we recognized another gap in our collective skill set, and that was marketing. None of us was a marketing specialist. We had built the company basically by word of mouth and client referrals. And it was really just pure luck and good timing that allowed us to get Eric Hush on the team as Chief Marketing Officer. Eric brought our brand to life in ways that none of us could have imagined. And even more than that, he's developed new brands to market our company under. So TicketBiscuit is kind of our core brand, and we also operate some different brands for different niche verticals that we pursue. We've got 20 or so other incredible people on the team at TicketBiscuit. Every one of them amazes me every day with their creativity and their commitment to delivering a good service. But really, these three guys that I've mentioned are our core team. They're the ones that I spend the most time with. And I'll tell you, it's not hard at all to spend a lot of time with these guys. We've gotten really lucky in that our personalities mesh so well. We love hanging out together. We even take what we call management retreats periodically throughout the year. A management consultant would probably call them team building exercises. We call them time to goof off and drink beer. I'll tell you about the last one we did. This was in March. We signed up for this thing called the Spartan Race. Anybody heard about this kind of thing? It's a grueling 4-mile run through the woods, 20 or so obstacles scattered throughout, including a 40-yard crawl through the mud under barbed wire. And for kicks, we decided to run this thing in suits. FYI, a suit caked in mud, weighs about 50 pounds. You don't want to run in it. We found that out the hard way. My point is this. Don't underestimate the importance of liking the people that you work with. It doesn't matter how much money you make, if the people that you work with every day make you miserable. If TicketBiscuit goes belly up, at least I'll know that the ride was fun and that I rode it with friends. All right, so next question that you may want to ask yourself as you think about what kind of business that you want yours to be. Do I just want to do well, or do I want to do some good? We hear a lot of talk these days about the triple bottom line, usually defined as people, planet, and profit. It's a bit old hat for us at TicketBiscuit. Most of us are pretty socially and environmentally minded, so we wanted to come up with our own definition of that triple bottom line. And for us, it's bringing value to 3 different parties in the equation that we deal in. It's ourselves, obviously, our clients, and their customers. The value that we create for them is both financial and emotional, and they're both equally important, I think. On the financial side, in our sales pitch, we talk about a win-win-win, and that's with each new account we sign, in general, ticket buyers pay lower ticketing fees, which everyone in the world hates. Clients tend to capture more revenue from each ticket sale, which is great, and obviously we grow our business. So that's the win-win-win financially. Emotionally, our employees enjoy working at TicketBiscuit in general more than they used to enjoy where they work. At least I think that's the case. We're nominated for BBJ's Best Places to Work, so we'll find out if that's true when those results come out. Also, our clients feel more important and better served than they were by their previous ticketing partner. So there's the second emotional win. And then in general, ticket buyers don't feel like they just got squeezed by some anonymous corporate behemoth. So speaking of that behemoth, you know who I'm talking about. I don't like to say their name. I'm just going to refer to them as he who must not be named. Compare our triple bottom line to what I consider that company's pursuit of a single bottom line. There's no question they've created plenty of value for themselves, and I'd argue that they've actually created a lot of value for their clients as well. But they've ignored the third party in the transaction, the ticket buyer. And by doing that, I think they've sown the seeds for their undoing. They've created such a huge amount of ill will, not only towards themselves, but transitively towards their clients, that I think it may be their downfall. All right, so the third question. Ask yourself, what am I going to be psyched about working on around the clock, day in and day out? You've probably already answered this question. In fact, I bet it's your idea, or that seed of an idea, that inkling of an idea, that has compelled you to start the business in the first place. Any more than any of the why things that we talked about up top, the independence and the financial freedom and flexibility and all that. It's your idea that you're so passionate about that compels you and leaves you no other choice but to follow that dream. For me, it was the marriage of 2 things that I was passionate about: rock and roll and building software. And you know, the TicketBiscuit system was actually the first real piece of code that I wrote. I leave that little tidbit out of the sales pitch most of the time. It doesn't exactly inspire confidence in clients. But I was tired of doing freelance web design. I saw the commoditization of web design on the horizon. I had no desire to compete with $50 website templates or 99-cent a month hosting packages. And I'd gotten a little taste of the power that you feel when a computer does what you tell it to do. So I went out and bought some books, actual printed books. This is how long ago this was. I read those books cover to cover. Many of them I read twice. Because getting websites to do stuff was such an amazing thing, coming from a non-programming background. And getting websites to do stuff that in the real world would cost you a lot of money or time to do was basically intoxicating. So it really wasn't hard at all to spend 80 hours a week working on the app. In fact, it was hard not to spend 80 hours a week working on the app. That's the kind of power that your idea and your business has to wield over you, because you're going to be doing it day in and day out, and if you're not loving it, you're going to fall on your face. So there's one other thing that I want to talk about. I'm hoping this one also fits into the category of something useful you learned today. Narrow your scope. You're going to hear me say that about 15 more times. Even simple ideas can be too far-reaching. And if you start out with a business that's too, whatever you want to call it, large, complex, vague, it's very hard to be the best. And in today's hyper-competitive, globalized marketplace, you've got to find something that you can be the best at. And to do that, you very often have to narrow your scope to something very specific. If you can't be the best at something, you probably won't win. So let's take my idea. Sell ticketing software. Sounds simple and narrow, right? Well, it turns out it's pretty vague. Who do I sell the ticketing software to? Individuals? Nonprofits? Small businesses? Large businesses? Ticket resellers? We found out pretty early that each of these groups had different needs, and that the best ticketing software for one was not going to be the best for another. So we chose to focus on small businesses. They were the ones that we saw as being underserved by our competition, and they were the segment that we felt had the best combination of opportunity for success and also a valuable market. All right, so sell ticketing software becomes sell ticketing software to small businesses. A little bit more narrow. What kind of ticketing? Concerts, museums, zoos, travel, sports. Here again, different industries with different needs. We chose concerts. Most of our clients were music venues, and music was the industry that we had the most knowledge of. So we've since expanded our scope a good bit to things as varied as comedy clubs, railroads, dance studios, and quite a few other verticals. But we tried to start with a narrow scope that we could be the best at, and the business was better for it. So now it's sell concert ticketing software to small businesses. And we had to narrow down even much further than that. Software as a service was how we were going to deliver it, and very many other decisions that we had to make along the way in order to get to a scope that I think was narrow enough that the business had a chance of success. So I'm going to say it again. The right way to build an early stage company is by narrowing your scope. Exclude as much as you can. Start with a log and end with a pencil. If you think your idea is already a pencil, think again, it's probably a log. There's always room to narrow it down further, and doing so will almost always do your business good. Be the best at making pencils. Now, there's nothing to say that once you're the best at making pencils, you can't get into pool cues and toothpicks and chopsticks and whatever else you can make out of a log. Or you might even find out that you can't be the best at making pencils. And if you do find that out, change over to pool cues or chopsticks or whatever. You're not going to do yourself any good by continuing to go down the wrong path once you've identified that there's a better path. Here again, allow yourself to be led. Recognize opportunities that you didn't expect and be prepared to change course and follow them. But narrow your scope before you begin by asking and answering questions, and you'll find yourself more successful. Let me rephrase it and qualify that statement. The more you can ask and answer questions correctly to hone in on that narrow intersection between your strengths and a valuable market, then the more successful you'll be. All right, let me recap. Lesson number 1, quit the band. Lesson number 2, start a business because you have no other choice. The only way you're going to be happy is by following that thing that you're passionate about, just because there's nothing else that you see in the world that you'd be happy doing. Number 3, work with people that you like. You're going to be seeing a lot of them. Number 4, work for the triple bottom line, however you define that. And number 5, narrow your scope. Pencils, not logs. And that's about everything that I have to tell you. I hope there was something valuable in it. Thank you so much.